Welcome everybody to the third Gothenburg Democracy Talks. My name is Urban Strandberg I am the host of today, and I'm also the co-founder and director of the International Youth Think Tank, which is one of the organizers of today's seminar. The other two organizers is the Department of Law, which is the department in this building where we are now, the School of Business, Economics and Law at the University of Gothenburg. And the third organizer is a student-led organization called Brännpunkt Europa, who will say a few words about themselves in a bit. So, today's theme is about truth and journalism, because those things hang together. As long as we have seen democratic systems being up and running in the 19th and 20th century, we know that truth and sound information is a key requirement for a functioning democracy. And that is also to say that journalists and media who are hiring journalists are key for keeping up a sound information sharing and basically, eventually keeping up the truth. So, since that is such an important thing, and since we are living in times where we have problems, we have problems in terms of countries in the world turning autocratic instead of being democratic, that is one huge problem. And another huge problem is that journalists are pushed really hard for not being capable of doing what they are supposed to do. I just want to mention the stunning number that almost 100 journalists have been killed in Gaza in the war. And that is an appalling number of people getting killed because they were trying to inform all of us about what happens. So these are just a few key things to say why we are dedicating the full seminar to discuss the role of journalism. Before I introduce the speakers of today, I will just say a few brief words of the IYTT, which is the short version of the International Youth Think Tank. We are an organization set up in 2019, which are composed of young persons in the age span of 18 to 24, and they come from many different countries of the world, and they have two tasks. One is to come up with tangible proposals on how to democratize the world, how to renew democracy, and how to stand up for an open society. And the second role is to inspire people to be more active citizens. Because, even in very established democracies of the world, too many citizens are not looking upon themselves as active political subjects. They are passive, and some of them feel voiceless. So that is a very important task of the IYTT to voice people and making them more active. So you get enrolled as a youth fellow of the IYTT by applying to a conference which admits 24 persons, meaning every year we recruit 24 persons. And to give you a number, last year we had our 5th anniversary conference and we received 540 applications from 68 countries. So we are reaching out quite broadly in the world. And we are going to South Africa with our 6th conference this August to continue with our methods, continue with our mission in another continent than Europe, because up till now we have been in Europe. Anyway, this is the very brief thing about the IYTT, and I want to move on to today's seminar. You will have basically 3 things today. You will soon have a presentation by a Turkish journalist and writer who is in exile in Sweden. I will present her in a bit. And after that, 3 IYTT youth fellows will join us here and in the first round give some comments on the presentation. And in the second round, present to you some of their ideas and one specific proposal on how to secure the very vital role of journalists in a democracy. And then the third part of today's seminar is when we open up for questions and comments from you in the audience, irrespective if you are in the room or in the live stream. So that is the third part, your comments and questions. So we have lots to do, important things to share with one another. And first of all, I want to give the word to Abigail, who is one of the students of Brännpunkt Europa, and who will say a few words about Brännpunkt Europa.
Thank you. Hello, my name is Abigail Hartson, and I'm co-chair of Brännpunkt Europa. So we are an organization who arranges lectures about politics and Europe, so please follow our social media over here, just to know about our future events this month and in May. And thank you very much for coming.
Thank you, Abby. So Abby will be back by that part of the seminar when we open up for questions from the audience. She will help us out with the microphone. So this is the introduction. Welcome. Now I want to ask Ceren, who is coming from Växjö today, because you have been in exile in Växjö for a few years now, and you are sharing with us a more thorough presentation about your activities and about the requirements for your exile, and also share your thoughts about how it is to be a journalist. In your case, that you have been a journalist in Turkey, which is a pretty autocratic country. So we are so happy to have you here, Ceren, and the stage is all yours. Welcome.
Thanks so much. Okay. Firstly, I would like to say I'm so pleased I'm here because I think democracy talks are really important during that time. Because right policies increase all of the world, and this means that democracy under the danger, and we need to spend more time for discussing and talking about democracy. And thank you for inviting this seminar, dear Urban, and thank you for coming here. Before my presentation about the place of journalism in the struggle for human rights in Turkey, I would like to say something about myself. I'm Ceren Aslan. You can call me Ceren. I'm born and grew up in Istanbul. I studied mathematics. But after the university, I started to work as journalist. I work a lot of position as journalist. First time I was reporter, and then editor-in-chief and editor in newspaper in Turkey. And I'm also activist, LGBT and women activist. I focus to write about LGBT and women issue, but except this, I focus to write about who is marginalized in Turkey. I write about this, for example, Kurdish issues, or for example, some ethnic groups and so. And I've been in Sweden since July 2022. I'm ICORN guest writer and journalist in Växjö municipality. Maybe you wonder about what is ICORN and why am I here? I can see, I think, yes. ICORN is the International Cities of Refugee Network and is an independent organization of cities and regions offering shelter to writers and artists at risk, advancing freedom of expression, defending democratic values, and promoting international solidarity. So who is like me as writer, journalist, or artist? They are under the pressure and threat on countries. They can apply this organization, and ICORN give us 2 years residency. And firstly, we have a safety place. And secondly, we can continue to work again these places. For example, Sweden have 25 icon cities, but Europe have a lot of icon cities. So the municipality of Vecchio is an icon city, and I'm guest writer there. So when I arrived to here, by the way, I applied ICON because I stayed in prison 2 years, 6 months in prison in Turkey about my journalistic activities. And other thing, I have 6 years and 9 months prison sentence now. If I back to Turkey, I will stay in prison again. And it's also about my journalistic activities because I write about Kurdish issue and LGBT and women rights. So I continue to write some articles in Sweden. It published these articles published in some Turkish websites. You can see it's about pride in Vecchio, and I try to compare compared Istanbul Pride and Vecchio Pride, and other one is published in Swedish website. It was about earthquake in Turkey, February 2023, and like this, Swedish elections in Sweden, and it published in Turkish website. So, and after I arrived here, I started to write a book, and it's Bara vi själva kan rädda varandra. I think it's about we are each other's remedy in Turkish, in English, sorry. And in Turkish, birbirimizin çaresiyiz. It published in Swedish and also Turkish on November 2023. It's about LGBT women and Kurdish stories in Turkey. I focused to write about how did Turkish policies affected our lives. Because I went to a lot of cities in Turkey as journalist, I meet a lot of people, especially LGBT and women and Kurdish people, and they give me some stories, sometimes in Kurdish area, sometimes Istanbul streets, sometimes prison. You can find something this book. And by the way, my writing motto is personality is poetic, and so you can find something about what is the situation in Turkey about policies, LGBT or women or some ethnic identity policies. So that's it. Yes, so it's my story, but I will continue with my presentation. As I mentioned, I will talk about the place of journalism in the struggle for human rights in Turkey. So I think that in order to understand the place of journalism in the struggle for human rights in Turkey, it's important to understand not only the 20 years of Erdogan's rule, but also the political conjuncture Turkey has had since its foundation and how the media has been handled by the state. I think it will be possible to evaluate freedom of the press, freedom of thought, and freedom of speech in Turkey in the light of this whole picture. On the other hand, it will also be easier to understand the connection of journalists with the struggle for human rights. Since its inception, Turkish politics has existed on the basis of social polarization based on issues such as religion, national identity, and gender roles. Although today we are discussing the 20-year political rule of the AKP, led by President Erdogan, Turkey's political history has always been characterized by policies that foster social polarization, as I mentioned, such as religion, national identity, Kurdish or Armenian, political views, gender roles, or sexual identity. So the political history of Turkey has always been characterized by a political structure that is not open to differences and propagandizes this political orientation through the mainstream media. Therefore, it's possible to say that the mainstream media uses disinformation in the most effective way. In fact, it is enough to look at the last 10 years of Turkey to understand this. I say the last 10 years because in this period we see that the politics of polarization in Turkey's domestic and foreign policy has deepened even more. There have been many developments in Turkey in the last 10 years, such as the coup attempt, the war against the Kurdish region, both on its own territory and across its borders, for example, Syria and Iraq parts, the use of arrests and detentions to suppress social opposition. This situation is still ongoing, and it's worth mentioning the role of the mainstream media in these developments. And so, first of all, I would like to explain how the press and media in Turkey are separated within themselves. This separation takes three forms. First, the mainstream media that supports the policies of the political power. Secondly, the media that supports the policies of the main opposition party or anti-AKP religion communities. The third is the alternative or independent media. The mainstream media, which supports the policies of the political power, reports all news in a way that supports the policies of the political power. This covers up human rights violations and government corruption in Turkey. It's a propaganda tool that includes the polarization policy of the political power. The most important examples of disinformation in the mainstream media's recent news coverage are the coverage after the major earthquake in February 2023 and during the elections in May 2023. Following the massive earthquake that struck southwestern Turkey in February 2023, a series of state failures came to the fore, such as the inadequacy of emergency response efforts and the failure to meet the needs of the people of the region. During this period, a broadcast by the state-owned television channel TRT was much talked about. During an interview with earthquake victims by a TRT reporter, the victim protested against the state's failure to intervene in the region. Upon this reaction, the broadcast was interrupted during the live broadcast, and it was stated that the works were continuing in the region and everything was under control. So similar to this station, mainstream newspapers also wrote that everything was under the control, but it was not. And also during the election period, the mainstream media did not go beyond making propaganda for the AKP, but the most important example of disinformation in the media was the day the election results were announced. During the broadcast on television channels, The data announced by two different news agencies were different. While the news agency known to be close to the state showed an increase in the voting rates of AKP, another major news agency known to be close to the anti-AKP religion communities showed an increase in the voting rates of the main opposition party, CHP. So, in the first round of elections, it took until the next day to learn the results, which once again increased the public distrust in media. It was really crazy for us because we didn't know anything about results for elections. On the other hand, during the state's war against the Kurdish region with armed forces in 2015-2016, the mainstream media's news coverage was one of the most important examples of disinformation. In these news reports, hate speech against the Kurdish people was used to propagate the politics of polarization. Military forces were forced to carry out bomb attacks on empty houses, and the mainstream media reported that there were terrorists in the houses. Children under the age of 18 who were killed by the Turkish military in the region were reported as terrorists. So you can be easily a terrorist in Turkey if you are Turkish or a journalist or some marginalized group. Oh my, okay. So there are dozens of examples that can be given on this issue. But I think it will be good to move on to the recently passed anti-disinformation law in order to understand censorship in Turkey. It is important to understand the disinformation law passed the parliament about 2 years ago in order to understand the state of censorship in Turkey. But before, I want to share a video with you what happened after the anti-disinformation law and how did journalists reaction about this. So let's see. Yes.
Baskılar bizi yıldıramaz. Özgür basın susturulamaz.
Önce gazeteciler uzaklaştırılıyor. Gazeteciler tartaklanıyor. Kameralarına el konuluyor.
Yabancısı değiliz. Bu siyasi atmosferin de yabancısı değiliz. Özgür basın geleneğini çok iyi tanırlar. Arkadaşlarım yorumlandı. Ama tüm itirazlara rağmen AKP ve MHP iktidarı bu tırnak içerisinde dezenformasyon yani sansür yasası diyelim buna. Sansür yasasını meclisten geçirdi. Akabinde hep biz gördük. 9 gazeteci arkadaşımız işkenceyle gözaltına alındı. Görüntüler bir şekilde servis edildi. Daha önceki arkadaşlarımızda olduğu gibi. Yani özellikle de özgür basına yönelik bu girişimlerin yabancısı değiliz. Bizler bu operasyonların 1990'lı yıllardan beri sürdüğünü biliyoruz. Daha önce
gazetecidir. Baş eğdiremediğiniz arkadaşlarımıza işkenceye son verin. Tüm bu işkencelerinizden taviz vermeyerek gelen özgür basının kalemi iki yakalarını bırakmayacaktır. Tüm gazetecilere ve meslek Mezopotamya Kadın Gazeteciler Platformu.
Gözaltına tutuk.
Haber merkezi burası. Şimdi konuşuyorum. Bir yandan Erdoğan'ı bekliyoruz tabii gelecek. Dezenformasyon yasası aslında seçimlere yönelik bir hazırlık gibi de gözüküyor bir noktada. Dezenformasyon gerekçesiyle toplumun işte alternatif seslerini, bağımsız seslerini olabildiğince bastırmak, hem propaganda yürütmek hem de bilfiil uygulamalar yapmak. Seçim dönemi Türkiye'de gerçekle yalanın büyük bir mücadelesine sahne olacak. Çünkü
daha da büyüyor. Artık kendi can güvenliğimizden endişe ediyorum ben. Yani başımıza başka bir şeylerin geleceğini, alanda bu boyutun, şiddetin boyutunun daha da yükseleceğine inanmaya başladım artık. Sansür yasasıyla bunu da daha çok yapacaklar gibi görünüyor.
Sen neredesin ha? Tamam.
100 kere ya. 100 kere ya. İnsan olun ya. Ne yapıyorsunuz ya? İşimizi yapıyoruz.
So yes. So we watched this video, and actually, after the censorship law, what happened in Turkey about freedom of press? We can find response easily with report of the Reporters Without Borders. RSF prepared a report for 2023 about this, and as report, Turkey is 165th among 180 countries. It was in 2022, Turkey was ranked 149th. So I can explain this reason that in October 2022, censorship law accepted in Turkey government parliament. The government calls it the disinformation law. Censorship law is a name by journalism professional organizations, so I will say censorship law. Turkey government accepted this law on 14th October 2022, and there is important restriction against freedom of press, speech and thought. This law added to Turkish criminal law, disseminating misleading information to the public, and as this, who does is the will in prison for 3 years. If we think about Turkey's justice system, because Turkey's justice system is not independent from political power, of course, Erdogan, censorship law give restriction for press and social media. Other thing, it happened easy for narrowing band for social media with censorship law. After censorship law accepted in Turkey government parliament, it has started to implement fast. First example happened on December 2022, and journalist Sinan Aygül imprisoned. His imprison's reason is about his news. He wrote about police officers and soldiers' harassment and sexual abuse to a girl in Turkey. This news was a disinformation as the court. But he was free on January 2023, and I talked about this topic with him. And of course, he still felt under the pressure and he was under the threat. Sinan is only a sample for this. Not only journalists, people in the Turkey is same situation. For example, people don't want to interview with TV channels about any political issues, and the interviewers say that I hope that I don't imprison for tellings. It shows that everybody feel under the pressure all time. And also Twitter, social media, and especially Twitter is also same situation for people and journalists in Turkey. For example, after the 6th February earthquake, FMU's actor a tweet, I can't express my feelings in a way that won't land me in jail, and a lot of people retweet and like this tweet. It shows again people afraid to write own emotions and thoughts. Also, after the February earthquake, the communication ministry in Turkey imposed ban restriction to Twitter on 8 February 2023. This is a result of the censorship law. Turkey government's intervention was late and not enough for earthquake zone. People in Turkey criticized for this in Twitter and happened restriction for this reason, but This restriction has not only blocked freedom, press, speech, and thought, also people were communicating help for the earthquake zone with Twitter. Ban was also affected to this. So I can say that censorship leveled up next level with censorship law, but censorship was effective in Turkey before that. Especially after the Gezi uprising, Turkey government started to use censorship more effectively. I think this question is important. What is the reason used to censorship more effective in Turkey after the Gezi uprising? So I think it's about Turkey government's mismanagement crisis. In 2013, Gezi uprising was a reaction of the people about this. Turkey government answered to Gezi uprising by increasing threats, and censorship was a part of that. AKP wanted to take away the people's power to criticize and change. For example, social media was important for Gezi uprising because people get organized with social media. AKP reorganized the internet law on February 2014. It meant to ban easily news, website, and contents. So after the AKP's losing vote in 2015 elections, there was a war atmosphere. A lot of people died with bomb attack by ISIS. Also start to war against the Kurdistan, and a lot of people imprisoned. This was also affected journalists and journalists imprisoned, especially after the 2016 Fethullah Gülen coup attempt. Situation was also happened more difficult for press. A lot of press organizations closed and again journalists imprisoned, and so I said, as I mentioned, I stayed in prison between 2017 to 2019, and in 2017 almost 180 journalists were prison. So I will share a video again about this. Let's see. Yes.
In 2016, Turkey's government set a shameful record. The most journalists ever imprisoned by a nation in 1 year, with at least 81 reporters, editors, and producers in jail.
This is a crackdown unlike any before. This is the crackdown that would leave no actual working, surviving media left afterwards.
On the night of July 15th, a shocking attempt to oust President Recep Tayyip Erdogan was underway. By morning, it was clear that the attempted coup had failed. The government reasserted its control. Thousands of arrests were made in Turkey's military and civil sectors before the government turned its eye to the news media.
The government used this coup attempt as an excuse to eliminate all opposition on many fronts.
In the first couple of weeks after the coup attempt alone, we saw at least 100 media outlets shut down.
The arrests and repression of reporters have become routine since the July coup attempt. But journalists' troubles in Turkey began well before that. In March, Turkey's largest circulation newspaper was raided and seized by the government.
That was the moment that the government showed they have no scruples about entering a media outlet, taking it in a hostile manner, and then even arresting some of the top editors of that newspaper.
The government does not want any critical media existing in the country. What the government wants is an obedient media.
And before that, in 2015, a bitter attack on press freedom by the government landed respected columnist and editor Can Dündar in prison after his newspaper, Cumhuriyet, published video appearing to show the Turkish military secretly moving arms across the Syrian border.
It angered Erdogan personally. Erdogan went on national television and lashed out against Can Dündar and promised to never let him go.
Bu haberi özel haber olarak yapan kişi de öyle zannediyorum ki bunun bedelini ağır ödeyecek.
Dündar, who survived an assassination attempt in May 2016, eventually escaped the country and received CPJ's International Press Freedom Award for his reporting.
The case of Can Dündar is emblematic of what has been happening to journalists and media outlets that have the audacity to explore sensitive subjects.
A free, democratic Turkey is being destroyed before the world's very eyes.
Sadly, the future looks bleak for Turkish journalism.
There isn't much of a press left in Turkey. The mood on the ground is that anybody can be arrested at any given time. Millions of people in Turkey are feeling like hostages in their own country.
So yes, I think. And this we can see we watch this video, and the social reaction is wanted to be silenced with the oppressive atmosphere in which censorship is also a part of. For 10 years we watch this, and I think it's more clear for us. And so I can say that, and I think everybody can say that Turkey is not a democratic country in this situation. So, and other thing, I've already mentioned that there is an independent and alternative media in Turkey. We can also call it the media that is arrested, targeted, under pressure and threat. I'm also a part of this journalism alternative. I'm also independent and alternative journalist. Many journalists, including myself, work to make the public informed about the facts against the disinformation provided by the mainstream media. So we are trying to stand against the disinformation created by the mainstream media by reporting on human rights violations and corruption in which the government is involved. In a sense, this is closely related to the struggle for democracy. I just explained the extent of censorship in Turkey. In this case, I think the following question is important. How the journalists, especially independent and alternative media's journalists, make own jobs under the operation in Turkey. So I explained my experiences, and I can explain this my and my colleagues' experiences, I think. As first, when I was in Turkey, I felt like war reporter, because during the following protest, we always attacked by police, and I had to protect my equipments during that time. And when I was editor-in-chief in newspaper, I was always in court because I judged about my and other articles, and my whole times I spent my whole times in court for this. And also not only me, by the way, a lot of journalists like me. So I'm abroad now. A lot of colleagues are abroad like me. As migrant or refugee journalists, we try to do our job in the countries we are in. Most of us continue to write news and articles about political situation in Turkey. But being abroad does not mean being away from the pressures and threats of the Turkish state, I think. The recent attack on Erk Acarer, a journalist living in Germany and known for his criticism of AKP policies by nationalist mobs directed by the Turkish state, is a case in point. So other example, Can Dündar, you watch him. The red notice issued for journalist Can Dündar is another example for this. And an example of this in Sweden is Turkey preparing an extradition and presenting it to Sweden during the NATO meetings. And this list also includes journalists. In short, even if we manage to leave Turkey, we are not still a safety place. So my colleagues in Turkey still continue to live same threats, and you can see my colleagues some police attacks. And today, 56 journalists were arrested by the police until August 2023. So at least 23 journalists were judged under the censorship law. So we journalists have to be active at the same time for this reason in Turkey, because for defense, freedom press and speech and also human rights connected to this, we have to be activists at the same time. So that's all, I think. That's all. And so thank you for listening to me.
So, Ceren, it is a huge honor for us to having you here today. It's a huge honor for Sweden to have you as an exile journalist, because you bring with you your terrible but important experiences of being oppressed by being a journalist, and it's so valuable for us to have you here to share all your experiences and see how you continue to struggle, how you continue to write even though you're in exile. So thank you so much, and please have a seat here on the red chair, and I will ask our 3 youth fellows to join us here for a discussion. So, 5 of us. And you see the names I will present to you, the youth fellows of the IYTT. So, Lisa Lundgren, she joined the IYTT in 2020 and have stayed engaged quite much in the think tank. And when you're not an IYTT youth fellow, Lisa is studying for a master's degree in European studies. Half of the master's degree has been studied at the University of North Carolina in Chapel Hill, and half in Gothenburg. So you'll soon have a double degree in European studies. Thank you for being here, Lisa.
Thank you.
Shuman is actually a youth fellow, also joining the IYTT the same year as Lisa, 2020. And while not being a youth fellow, Shuman is studying for a bachelor's degree of political science at the University of Gothenburg. Happy to have you here, Shuman.
Thank you.
And Sylvia joined the IYTT 2021, and you are done with your bachelor degree in political science and working for the migration agency, the Swedish migration agency. So we're very gracious that you are here today on your lunch. So thank you and welcome, Sylvia.
Thank you.
So what now follows is first a round where Lisa, Shuman and Sylvia will give a few thoughts about Ceren's presentation, what came to their mind. And please, you take your notes, because eventually, as I told you in the start, we will open up the floor for comments and questions. So, Lisa, why don't you start to share a few thoughts about what you heard from Ceren's presentation?
Yes, thank you. First of all, thank you so much for the presentation. It was definitely like a heartbreaking and fascinating and inspiring story to hear about your life. So thank you. And it's of course difficult for me to say anything about this. Really, I haven't been in a Turkish prison due to working as a journalist. But I'll just say something brief. I think first of all, it's when we sit in here, it's like we all agree that this is terrible, that the things that are going on, and it's easy to think, oh, everyone agrees, everyone thinks this is terrible. But then, as Urban said, I'm a European studies student, so identifying not only as a Swede, but like as a European, I didn't know that this was going on so kind of close to home. I don't know if everyone in here knew this much about the situation for journalists in Turkey, but to me, concerning Turkey as a European-ish country, it's definitely scary to see that this is happening so close to here. And the second thing that really just I want to emphasize, when they talked about this new law in Turkey, someone said this new law is meant to combat misinformation, or that's the purpose of the Turkish government. It's hard not to think about what's going on, for example, in the US now with the presidential campaigns and Donald Trump and fake news, misinformation, what's going on there, what might happen if he gets elected and so on. And then it also made me think of this whole kind of logic. The government wants to combat misinformation. It made me think about what's worse for a democracy. Is it that there is misinformation, or is it a government that tries to combat misinformation? Perhaps we could have a discussion about that later. But yeah, I'll stop there and leave the word to Shuman.
Thank you, Lisa. Shuman.
Yeah, so I want to thank you as well for a very thought-provoking presentation. And I have to say from my own experience, having lived in multiple autocratic countries, such as Turkey, as we've talked earlier, it's also a thing of very close to my heart, because when you said that some journalists are afraid to express their own thoughts, it's not just about the thoughts that they are combating. It's not about the truth. It's a censorship of the mind, which has been discussed in literature through many years ago. For instance, Big Brother is watching you, and why you should not think, or why the main character was afraid of even thinking. So what you are doing as a journalist, I think it's a major important role to do in combating autocracies and making sure that someone has a place to say the truth about the world. So thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shuman.
Thank you. You both summarized a lot of my thoughts as well. But I also want to thank you so much for your presentation and for the information that you gave the whole room regarding the situation in Turkey. And as you both said, it's shocking and it's terrifying that this is very close to us, and we have a very important EU election coming up. I do also have some experiences from living in Bosnia, which the same law proposal on the disinformation law was presented there, and it was also supported by political parties and political leaders that are in very much favor and supports Erdogan. So I thought that part was very interesting of hearing about the developments in Turkey, and I do really hope that the countries could actually use the information that we have and see the consequences of these laws, and to actually do everything we can to prevent them. And I was also reflecting about the situation with the LGBTQ community, which also is very similar to the one in Bosnia and a lot of different Western Balkan countries. And from my experience, I noticed that the different civil society organizations, they play a huge role in supporting different activists, but also kind of forming their own opposition against these political parties. So I hope that we get some time during the Q&A session so you can elaborate some of your experience of how the climate for civil society organizations, how it is in Turkey right now. But thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you, Silvia. So now we will move on to the second part of the presentation of the IYTT Youth Fellows. And I will explain to you to prepare what they soon will present to you, and that is also a presentation of how the IYTT is working. So in the 2019 conference, the first conference of the IYTT, the Youth Fellows were suggesting that because journalists are so important for democracy, there should be a UN-sanctioned way of keeping journalists' integrity. So that was the proposal of the conference. What we then do with some of the proposals, we do a research overview after the conference when we have a little more time. So one of the front pages you see here on the screen is from a working paper which is written by a British philosopher about truth issues and the role of journalism. So in a bit, Lisa will describe to you some of the takeaways of that working paper. The second thing that we do, and that you see in the middle of the slide, that is a pie chart from a panel that we have. Because thing is, like I mentioned to you by the start, when 540 individuals are applying for being youth fellows, but only 24 are selected, the rest of them, we ask them, why don't you be on our youth panel? Meaning that we will occasionally send questions to you when we are about to develop our proposals. So this is a pie chart that Schumann soon will say a little bit more about, which was a panel round when we asked the panelists how they perceive issues that has to do with truth and the role of journalists. And the last front page that you see on this slide is the front page of a policy brief. And a policy brief in the IYTT means a pointed proposal that the youth fellows have come up with thanks to a thorough research that is done and presented in a working paper and a thorough sounding out what people are saying in the youth panel. So this is the working method by the IYTT to really come up with sound and well-prepared proposals. And bear with the youth fellows, they don't have that much time, so they will only give you some glimpse of each of those things. So if you're interested in what they soon will be saying, you will have a good chance afterwards to read through these different documents, because they are fully available on the web page. So this was to present the background, and now Elisa, you will start to present the working paper.
Yes, thank you. So like Urban mentioned, in the IYTT we launch working papers, which are kind of like big research overviews. And this particular one has the title, A Global Charter for Truth, Social Epistemology of the Internet Age. And it comes from the 2020 International Youth Conference, which I was part of. So obviously I can't summarize all of it right now, but you guys can read it on the website if you want to. And in 2020, during the conference that I was part of, we spoke a lot about the post-truth society. So this was a time back in 2020 when Donald Trump had recently been elected president, speaking of him again, and he started talking about fake news, and this was kind of what everyone was talking about at the time. So this working paper includes a bunch of previous research on this phenomena that's called the crisis of truth. It also talks about pros and cons of social media on public discourse, data privacy, institutional trustworthiness, and the vital role of traditional journalism and media in a democracy. So this final theme or chapter is what I'll focus a little bit more on today. So essentially, in a world with a lot of things going on at once, we can't rely on face-to-face communication to figure out what's going on in the world. Instead, we use journalism and media, right? So we trust traditional journalists and media to filter out interesting and relevant news that, and we trust that they will provide us these news in an expert way, unbiased way, and that they will provide a range of kind of perspectives and opinions on these issues. For this reason, media and journalism is a vital part of democracy, since it creates informed citizens, as you all know in here. Another way in which media is important for democracy is since media and journalists scrutinize the publicly elected officials, so like politicians, governmental authorities. They also scrutinize financial things like corruption, like what happens with our tax money, etc. So in this way, media is also a cornerstone of democracy since it scrutinizes the people of power. So getting back to the working paper. The working paper mentions how nowadays more and more people turn to social media and alternative news outlets to get their information. This has a lot of risks, including creating echo chambers, spreading fake news, that local news bureaus have to shut down because they're not popular anymore, lack of representation in news reporting, as well as polarization of society. So basically, traditional journalism is at risk today, all around the world. This working paper distinguishes three main kind of issues facing journalism today. The first one, as you can see, problems with the provision of funding. The second one is more of a consumer side problem, distinguishing between genuine and biased / propaganda journalism. So for us as readers to know if this is unbiased or not. And then the third one, which is of particular relevance today, the safety and the threats against the individual journalists. So to finish up, the IYTT has launched solutions to these problems in forms of policy proposals, which one of them we will talk about later. But you can read more about the problems, I guess, in the working paper on the website, as well as our solutions in form of policy proposals. So now I'll give the floor to Joman.
Thank you.
Yes. And thank you, Lisa, for this short presentation. So now let's talk about the youth panel, where we discuss the importance of truth. We asked two very simple, thought-provoking questions that can be answered with a yes and no answer, but we also wanted to know the motivation behind each panelist's reasoning for why they chose that answer. So on the first question, we asked them if they believe that the internet makes it easier to access reliable information. And here most of our panelists have thought that it is actually easier, since social media on the internet serve as an alternative source of information, where there is a diversity of different news sources, which makes the internet probably more reliable than traditional media. However, there were other panelists that believed that due to this fact, in fact, it makes it more difficult to find truth-based information due to the abundance of fake news and misconceptions about different topics. And in our second question, we asked the panelists if they believe that it is indispensable for democracy that citizens share a common set of truth. For example, a common set of factual statements that the Earth is a globe or that carbon emission is bad for the environment. So we asked them if it is indispensable or if it is okay that citizens do not agree on these sets of factual values. And here as well, we found that the majority of our panelists do in fact agree that it is indispensable to share at least a common set of values, which is the basis of a democracy. And that even though each person has their own right to have their own opinions about subjects, but having these sets of values is very indispensable for democracy. Others do believe that, in fact, it does not have to be that way, because each person have their own freedom to make their own opinions, and thus far, it has not been a challenge for these people that have answered. And with that, I will give the word to Silvia here to continue about our policy brief.
Thank you, Shuman. So I will inform you about the IYTT's policy proposal. So as the theme of today has been, the safety of journalists is under threat. And I found some interesting numbers from the CPG, the American Press Freedom Organization, that 320 journalists were imprisoned during 2023. So in order to address this, the International Youth Think Tank presented 3 policy proposals, and all the 3 policy proposals are very powerful proposals that are essential to improve the situation of journalists in the world. But I will elaborate more on one of them that is very appropriate for today's seminar, which is called the immunity status for journalists. So the mechanisms behind this proposal is basically to urge the UN to understand that truth-keeping is as important as peacekeeping. So that is the reason for the establishment of the new global UN agency called the IPT International Panel for Truth that Urban mentioned earlier. So the immunity status would be similar to diplomatic immunity. This proposal entails 2 levels of immunity, with the aim to safeguard journalists. So the IPT journalist certificate signals a journalist's right to protection, while IPT journalist immunity is granted to those in immediate danger. So the IPT journalist certificate will be granted to any journalist with recognized experience or affiliation with a media company. The certificate does not provide active protection, but gives a status as an IPT certified journalist who is entitled to invoke protection and immunity when necessary. And the second level of immunity, called the IPT journalist immunity, will be granted to journalists who are in urgent danger or are located in a region where he or she is very likely to face different types of threats. So this status can be issued quickly by the IPT in response to emerging threats, but is only temporary until the threat is averted. So by introducing this multi-level immunity system, the IYTT wants to hold states accountable for their treatment of journalists. And moreover, we wish that this system can encourage high-quality reporting, which benefits global democracy and human rights for all journalists in the world.
Thank you, Sylvia, and thank all of you. So now, dear audience, we have had the problem at hand described by Ceren, and then we have had the solutions, if I may put it that way. And well, the world is not that easy that we could fix it just in a quick way. So I guess that we will have to discuss the different hurdles on the way to a brighter world, and that we will do by expanding, by inviting you to a conversation on these pressing topics. So now the floor is all open. Who want to start? And please state your name and what you're doing when you're not in the room, so that we get to know a little bit of you.
Okay. My name is Nora, and I used to study here at Handelshögskolan, economics. Currently, I'm studying French. I have many questions, but I'll start with one regarding your paper, which I think is really interesting, and it is this UN proposal is something that I guess we would like to see, but it's difficult to make it happen in real life. And one of the issues that I thought of is that journalists, they do not have a protected title. And you talked about how you would go about giving them immunity. They would be from like a media outlet or something like that. But we know that we have a lot of biased media outlets. So that could become a problem. And also we have a lot of people like Ceren that are independent journalists. And they might be the most important one to protect, especially in countries like Turkey, etc. So my question is, did you have any other thoughts on that while you were writing the paper, on how to, I guess, define the status of a journalist, so that we can go about protecting them? Yeah.
Should I go? Yeah, sure. And then you can go. It's a very valid question. Thank you for your question so much. Obviously, I was in that conference where we discussed this, and obviously we had a lot of these types of discussions because it's a very complex issue. But I think the general answer, which you might not be satisfied with, but it is that the proposal, which you can read more about on the website, is that the UN would have its own unit that is like a council, or it works like, I don't know, like the UN Security Council, but like it's the UN Journalism Council, and they are the ones that scrutinize each application, so that they would be the ones handing out this certificate. So then how that council and the people working there specifically define a journalist is not something I think we have decided yet. But that's my answer. Do you want to add some?
I think that was a good answer, and I think it's a super good question as well. But it's very complex, and I think that you made a good point with us kind of handling this to the UN. But that is very hard, as obviously. So I don't think I have a better answer than you do actually on this one. But yeah,
if I tap in on this, I think it's a really good question. And a way of answering is that, well, even though the implementation of such a proposal is very difficult, it doesn't say that we shouldn't issue the proposal. Because only for that matter of presenting the proposal, it really underlines something which is really crucial. So you could say asking for the impossible thing is a bloody thing, good thing to do, if it is an important thing, even though it would be hard to be implemented, because it underlines such a crucial thing that could be very reasonable under the guidance of the UN.
My question is to Silvia, to Ceren, sorry. My name is Sultan, by the way. So you talked a lot about past and today, situation today in Turkey, but my question is about the future prospects. So I think that you would agree that there is a trend in Turkish politics that if a politician wins the mayor elections in Istanbul, that politician has higher chances to become a president if he or she runs for presidency the next election. That happened with Erdogan, this mayor election. His party AKP lost to İmamoğlu's CHP. And now that human rights and freedom of speech that issues are intimately linked with Erdogan's rule in Turkey, do you think that there is a chance that İmamoğlu's party would win next election against Erdogan, and how that would affect human rights and freedom of speech?
Thank you for this question. Firstly, I would like to say that, its local election was giving us really hope, because I said that 20 years, we have 20 years with Erdogan, and it's really hard time for us, not only me, I think Turkey, every people in Turkey. Yes, these elections give us hope, but I think Erdogan is still power in Turkey. CHP, main opposition party, changed now because Kılıçdaroğlu led by Kılıçdaroğlu is CHP's president before, but not now, and so CHP changed nowadays, but still Erdogan is so power in Turkey. So I try to keep my hopeness about next elections. Maybe it can change in Turkey, because there is economic crisis and also a lot of factor for there is a lot of factor for people changing minds. So. Yes, local elections give us hopeless, but it's not enough for us, I think.
Have another question, and I just want to say to you, the audience in the live stream, you're very welcome to send in if you have questions and comments to an email, and we will issue that in the room.
Yes, my name is Tamara. I study a master's program in sociology. And I was wondering, Lisa, the point that you brought up about this whole logic of a government combating misinformation, but on the other hand, we have misinformation that we need to do something against, right? And like we not only have a presidential candidate in the US spreading misinformation on a daily basis, but we also have this online and just about everywhere. But on the other hand, we have governments that are, in the name of battling misinformation, are actually suppressing the truth and the truth that needs to come out. So, like, I was wondering if any of you had any more thoughts and comments about that, because I think that's a really interesting discussion that we should have, because we have these, like, double truths, right? So, yeah, I thought about this too during the presentation, actually. So, yeah.
Thank you for bringing it up. I don't know if it was addressed to me. Would you like to elaborate on it, Ceren?
Maybe you can.
I don't know. I just had the same, I guess, thoughts that you did. I don't know. Do you guys want to elaborate on it?
I mean, there's always part of having double truths or double information, but it's probably more about having the ability to say one's own opinions and expressing them. And then it's also a challenge for each citizen in a democracy or in an autocracy to actually sit there and say, is this actual truth or is this a misconception? So it's really a big dilemma, and the only way to go through with this is to actually open up for more people to express their own opinions, whether it's against the president or with the president, but having this platform will allow us to make more complex and more thorough decisions about the truth and the world around us. So,
yeah, I definitely agree with what you're saying, and maybe showing support to different civil society organizations or people, ensuring that we have a climate where it's actually okay to express our feelings and our opinions about different topics. And maybe, yeah, I do agree that that is a big part of ensuring that there is a safe space to express your opinions. Yeah.
Do you want to say something on this question?
No, I joined with them. So
I could have comments. I mean, if we look at traditional media, we have two important actors, you could say. We have the journalist, for one thing, who is supposed to be being educated, to be capable of presenting a valid news reporting. But the second actor is the editor-in-chief, who is traditionally responsible for the issuing of a newspaper or a radio broadcasting. So that person is is about responsibility. That actor is actually responsible for the content. So that is a quality assurance thing. So bear this in mind. Then think about social media. Well, there are no, or very few, journalists, and there are definitely no editors. So the way of assuring the quality in traditional media by educated journalists and appointed editors, we are lacking that in social media. So I think that is a big challenge for the years to come, how we could think about developing social media to somehow have the quality assurance functions. I don't know, I mean, it couldn't be editors, but somehow it's important to underline that the quality assurance maybe could be sought for in some way or another, in the same way as we are accustomed to that it's actually catered for in traditional media. We have another question? Here, Abby, first here and then up there.
No, go.
Okay.
I already had the mic, but I'll go ahead anyways. It's to you, Ceren. Now you are writing from Växjö, but still in Turkish, as I understood it. And my question is the Turkish public able to read and reach your information from Växjö? Or is international media, I guess both the general media but also independent media, censored in Turkey currently?
No, actually, my article and some news published in Turkish website, and they can read my articles and news. And also, actually, about this book, I said it published in Turkish, but it was censored. Some words and some things is original in Swedish, but other one is not original. So I was afraid that maybe this book banned in Turkey, but not. They can read my book, and it's okay.
My name is Benedetta, and I study political communication, actually, so really on point. And my question is to Ceren regarding social media and the regulation of social media, because I have had the chance to study disinformation and those phenomena for a while now in my course. And do you think that social media, your personal opinion, social media could be like a viable option for the future of independent journalism? As in, like, because many theorists have hypothesized that it could be time for traditional journalists to just be abandoned, basically, in order to fight disinformation and propagating like control of the governments. So what's your personal opinion on it, as somebody who has lived in that environment?
Thank you for this question. And I want to say, firstly, independent and alternative media use more effectively in Turkey social media. For example, YouTube, Twitter, or something. Because we don't work in TRT, on country channel, or some mainstream media about our writing way. And so, yes, other thing is really dangerous for disinformation, I think, because as you mentioned, there is no editor or something. We don't know who is right or who is not right true things. So it's really dangerous, but it's not main issue in Turkey now, because mainstream media use so disinformation news, and we just keep truth things with news and articles. Yes, but it's important, I think, but it's not main issue now. Thank you.
Thank you for this very interesting. I'm Cecilia Malmström, one of the co-founders of the International Youth Think Tank. Thank you for sharing your story. It was very moving and very sad, of course. I wanted to ask you, and following a little bit on what has been said, if there is any light in the tunnel there, except for hoping for new elections in 5 years. But I was thinking of a comparative situation in Russia, for instance, where Navalny used social media very, very skillfully to sort of present a new narrative, to sort of undress Putin and his corruption, but also creating a movement that the Russian society didn't manage to censor. Is there anything of that kind in Turkey that can give hope for a sort of counter-narrative?
Yeah, actually, I want to say about this. Thank you for this question. Again, CHP, main opposition party, is not hope for me, actually. Okay, it's so soft party, maybe soft policies. Main opposition party has sought policies, but it's still against differences. For example, we had a time with CHP during the 1970s, and during the first years Turkey government, it was really hard time for us. I didn't live that time, but I know. So I don't have any hope for CHP or some opposition party, but I want to change this government, AKP, because we have 20 years with them, and especially young youth generation don't know anything about except AKP, Erdogan. He's always there, so it can change. We can change a lot of things, I think. Then, other thing, as I said, Erdogan is still power in Turkey, like Putin in Russia, like I don't know, people maybe like power in Turkey or Russia. And if I have just only hope for struggle for democracy. For example, some human rights organization in Turkey or journalist organization in Turkey, because democracy, these organizations protect our rights, humanitarian rights, or freedom of speech, freedom of press, or something. And I hope my hope is only independent with them organizations. So.
Thank you. And a question on a bit on the same theme. My name is Tord Hermansson. I'm the former CEO of Lindholmen Science Park, which also is the host organization for the think tank. So in that role, I've been having the privilege of sort of monitoring closely the think tank and you guys, the youth fellows, and what you've been doing. And it's, for a grumpy old guy, it's very inspiring. Or there, as Cecilia said, or there's some hope in that the young power finally will sort of prevail. Maybe is it going too far? But getting us to change what's going on.
Mm-hmm. So I should think about this now. I need time. Maybe we can continue, and then I will answer your question.
Hi, my name is Seda. I come from artistic background, so I want to ask a very personal question, a bit in relation to the previous question of hope. Maybe this might address your more author and I think maybe activist self, because I'm really curious about your personal motivation. I think it's amazing that you still continue to create when you're in exile, which I can assume in a very difficult state. So where do you take your motivation from? And also, we have been talking about responsibility and censorship, and I'm just wondering actually how much one can fight for truth as an individual. And I'm more afraid of self-censorship than state censorship. Mm-hmm. That is also, I think, very visible in art and culture. There doesn't need to be any rule, like laws or rules for this, and we see it happening often. So I'm just wondering your personal thoughts.
Thank you for this question. Firstly, okay, I'm exiled in here. I know, but I don't feel like exile because actually, when I was in Turkey, I felt like exile because it's about my identity, national identity. I'm half Kurdish, half Armenian, and a little bit Turkish. So, and also my sexual identity and like this. So, I felt like in Turkey I'm exiled. I can live everywhere if I write. If I write my thoughts, if I write as journalist or writer, I can live everywhere because I love in my job. So that's about this. Writing is my motivation, I think, and also it's about my activism, LGBT and women activism. So actually, I don't auto-censorship. I don't have auto-censorship for myself. It was also in Turkey. I didn't have this, and because this, I judge about my writing or other writing things. So because it's not normal, I think censorship is not normal for me, and if it is not normal, I don't use this. It's my thoughts, so it's about this. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Dharani. I'm a journalist from India. I wanted to ask the question to Ceren. You were mentioning about the influence of mainstream media in Turkey, and I believe a large chunk of mainstream media in Turkey are, either pro-government or sort of have a pro-government business influence. I was wondering how far the impact of the mainstream media has been on the overall decline of democracy in Turkey over the years.
Sorry, I don't understand. I think maybe...
No, about the mainstream media, which are largely pro-government, which support the government or are influenced by, the government. I was wondering how far the influence of the mainstream media has been on the overall decline of democracy in Turkey.
Okay. I think it's about mainstream media is so effective in Turkey, and it's about, as I mentioned, that it's about because government supported mainstream media, and so their propaganda includes government's propaganda. So it's about this, I think. So I don't know, it's your question's answer, but they are powerful. So yeah, the mainstream media powerful because the government supports them. It's about this, I think. So sorry. Thank you.
So thank you so much for a very fine seminar. We have a few minutes left. So first of all, I want to thank the panelists and hand over a small gift. It's not that small, actually. It's a little big and heavy. So this is a newly released book and with the title, Towards a Sustainable World, Academic Insights and Perspectives. And it's been written by a bunch of scholars who are active at this School of Business, Economics and Law last year, because last year was the school has been up and running for 100 years. So that gave an opportunity to write up this book. So this is a small token of appreciation of you coming here today. One book each.
And the exchange, I think, is for you.
Oh, thank you so much. We are exchanging reading. So having said that, I just want to give some credits to the sponsors, and you can see the different logos of the organizers. And I want to particularly mention that we have some financing for this seminar by Gustav Adolf Bratts föreläsningsfond. So we are so grateful for that. And the final thing is a little bit of advertisement. So the fourth and final lunch seminar in the Gothenburg Democracy Talk series of this spring is coming up on the 26th of April. The speaker who starts off is Roland Paulsen, who is a sociologist, who is writing on, well, he's criticizing the economic model of today, you could say. And that will be a highly interesting start for a seminar where the other youth fellows will present really bold, visionary proposals on how to change the world economically. So don't miss this opportunity. You know how you ended up here today, so I guess that you know how you find us for the next seminar. So thank you so much for being with us today, and welcome back on April the 26th. Thank you.